This video is sponsored by Squarespace. From websites to online stores to marketing to analytics, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform that helps you to design your website and grow your business. More about them at the end of the video. Okay, so today we are going to be discussing A Memory of Light, the final book in the Wheel of Time series. 14 books. I finished. I have so many thoughts. Oh my goodness. If you didn't watch my review for A Way of Kings, I'm sick. I feel terrible today, but I want to get my thoughts out, so it's going to be a chill review of Book 14, Wheel of Time. And what I'm going to do is just hit the highlights in the first half of the book, the scenes that I really loved, and then when we talk about the final battle, I'll get into my talking about each character, how I felt about the different roles that they played, and overall feelings. When I finish this book, I don't know. Oh man, this is gonna be probably the hardest book for me to review, honestly, because of the 14, because there's so much packed into this book, and I know that what people will probably want is like a 2-hour long review so I can hit on every single moment, and I just can't do it. So I really just want to hit on my highlights and how I felt about each character's role and my overall thoughts. And what I'll say is that this was, oh my goodness, such a satisfying ending to the series. I'm very, very happy I'm coming out of this smiling. I will say that when I closed the book that night, which I read the last, 200 pages or more in one go, because once I got to a certain point, I couldn't stop. When I closed the book, I was frustrated. That was my dominant feeling, and I'll get there. I'll talk about that and why. And I didn't love everything that happened, but my overall feelings are tremendously positive. I'm very happy with the way this book ended, with the way this series ended. Hitting on some highlights. What are their names? How do you say them? Andrel and Pivara. I have gotten some comments. Apparently, they're a little bit controversial in the fandom. People don't like them because they took up a lot of page time in this final book, and we already have such a massive cast of characters. Did we need 2 more? And my answer is yes. I loved their characters and what they added to the world building of the series, or rather what they added to the explanation of things. I find bonding very interesting, and I think that this magic system is one of the coolest magic systems I've ever read, and what they provided in furthering our knowledge on that was amazing, especially that scene, which I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm going to talk about, where she comes to him and tries to convince him to link with her, and when they finally do link, and he starts pulling from her power and kind of takes over, and it freaks her out. She tells him to stop, but he doesn't. And then she, kind of in an act of fear, bonds to him, and then he bonds back. And then they have this 2-way bond, which makes them able to read each other's minds. Their entire dynamic, and her slowly learning to trust him and start using the connection in a positive way, and then the role they played in the final battle, I just loved their characters. I loved what they provided for helping me to understand the magic and the bonding system and expanding on that more, but I also loved the role that they played that I actually almost missed in the final battle. I think that they were a great addition to the story, and I'm really glad we got what we got from them. Rand and Egwene finally talked. In the last book, their conflict was annoying to me because I felt like they could just have a conversation and they'd be fine. Well, they had the conversation and it wasn't fine. They finally talked, and Rand said, "Here's what I need. Here's my stipulations. Here's what I want." And Egwene said, "No. You're crazy, I've heard." And he says, "Yep, it's true. I am." Which, I mean, good on you for your honesty, I guess, but it's not going to make her trust you. I really appreciated that they've been apart for what, 2 years now, and they've both had so much happen to them in those 2 years that I really like that pretty much with all of these characters, not all of them, but with so many of these characters, the time spent apart and how much they've changed is actually shown on page. And when they come together, it's not always this big reunion. Sometimes it is, but it's not always this big reunion where it's like, oh, we're best friends. We grew up together. We've known each other so long. We trust each other and we trust each other perfectly. I love that that's not what we got. I love that there's a lot of distrust that happens, and mostly with Egwene, the way she doesn't really trust the people around her, but there's so much distrust that happens, and it's like, I don't know you anymore, you don't know me anymore, and I don't know if I can trust you. And I really appreciate that, because these characters have spent so much time apart, and we know them, and we know that we can trust them, but they don't know that. And I think that that would have been a really easy thing to not do, and to just make them perfectly trust each other and work together, and I would have accepted that. But I actually really love how much conflict there is because they didn't do this journey together, even though we did this journey with each of them. But that scene, man, I don't know how I feel about Egwene. I'm gonna be honest. I know that the fandom is really split on her. Some people diehard love her. Some people think that she's the worst character ever. And I don't know how I feel about her, because she really won me over in book 12. And then book 13, she really irritated me. And now book 14, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about you, because especially with this scene where Rand was trying to negotiate with her and trying to make this thing work and explain his situation, and her response was essentially, no, I want to cause the taint to happen again and make it so that channeling drives men insane again. And her, I get it. I really do get it. I get her position, because he's telling her, I can do this. I can defeat the Dark One. And her response is, and if you don't, our world could be destroyed. And he says, no, I know I can. I was there the last time. Gosh, I feel like it's been forever since I read this scene. He tells her, I know that I can break these seals without him being released. And I know I can do this, essentially. And her response is, I don't trust you. I'm not willing to take the risk, and I'd rather just close the seals and put the taint back on the world. And it's basically, this doesn't really affect me. It only affects the men, so I don't really care that this is going to be horrible for half the population, because the other side of it is we could all die. And I get that she's in a ridiculously difficult position, but also coming from the position of someone who knows Rand, I'm like, woman, that is so selfish, but it's not so selfish. It was such a hard scene because I wanted to be so mad at her for how flippantly she treated the taint, but at the same time, it made sense that she wanted to be safe rather than sorry, even though that safety hurts so much of the world again. Then Moraine comes into the room. Man, let me tell you something. After that chapter, between that whole fight, that whole argument, the whole thing between Rand and Egwene, and then Moraine shows up, I just had to put the book down, even though at the end of the chapter, that scene wasn't over, and I needed to know what happened next. I had too many emotions going on. I was too irritated yet understanding of Egwene, and excited that Moraine was back. I couldn't handle it. I just had to call my friend and talk out my feelings. I loved the part that Moraine played in this scene too, the way she, oh man, let me see if I can find some of the lines. Oh yeah, okay. I'm just gonna read the one because it's amazing. You still insist that you must break the seals, Egwene said. Do not worry, Egwene, Moraine said, smiling. He's not going to break the seals. Rand's face darkened. Egwene smiled. You're going to break them, Moraine said to Egwene. Ah! I love it. I love it. I love the way Moraine just like happily puts her in her place. It's perfect. Okay, this scene was probably the first scene in the book that made me cry. We're moving forward. We're not in that scene with all of them yet, anymore. But I will say, Moraine in that scene was perfect. It was exactly what that scene needed. I'm so happy to have her back. Here we go. Lan. This was Lan's book. I was so happy with Lan in this book. This was the first scene that I think really just got me, and hurt me, but like in the best way. Like whew, okay. But this is essentially when Lan has accepted, this is where I die, but I'm going down fighting. And whew, Lance's set, Lan screamed. Light, but those hoofbeats were loud. Could 6 men make so much noise? He turned to look at those behind him. At least 10,000 rode there. What? He pressed Mandarb forward through his surprise. Forward the golden crane. Voices, shouts, screams of power and joy. The air ahead to the left split with a sudden visceral slash. A gateway 36 paces wide, as large as Lan had ever seen, opened as if to the sun itself. From the other side, the brightness spilled out, exploded out. Charging men in full armor burst from the gateway, falling into place at Lan's flank. They flew the flag of Arafel. More gateways. 3, then 4, then a dozen. Each broke the field in coordination. Charging horsemen bursting forth with lances leveled, flying the flags of Saladea, Shinar, Kandor. In seconds, his charge of 6,000 had become 100,000. This scene got me. This scene where I was like ready to lose Lan, this character that I'm unreasonably attached to because he hasn't gotten enough page time, and then to see him ready to fall, but to go out fighting, and then just thousands of gateways open up around him, and this army charges it. It was one of my favorite scenes of the entire book, easily. I'm gonna go ahead and skip forward now to the scene where Rand, okay, so Perrin did his thing in Tel'Andriel. Perrin did his thing and faced off against Lanfear, sort of, talked to Lanfear, and Lanfear is, we don't even know what side she's on, who she's loyal to, what in the world she's doing, which I actually really liked her role in this book. She was such a wild card, and I didn't trust her at all, but I loved the role she played. So Perrin does his thing. He removes the dream spike. Rand goes to talk to Tuon. This is the scene I want to talk about. Oh my goodness, do I hate Tuon. So basically Rand tries to get her to join forces with him. And she says, I want to keep my slaves, is basically what it boils down to. And he tells her no. He says, please work with me on this. The entire fate of the world could depend on it. And she says, no, not unless I get to keep my slaves. And she's ready to walk away. You suck, Tuon. That whole scene, oh my goodness. I walked out of that scene so angry at her. Where is it? Can I find it? I will say it was nicely balanced. The scene kicked off with Rand and Mat's reunion, which was fantastic. That's the kind of reunion I expected to get all throughout this book, when the characters would see each other and just immediately be happy to see each other, kind of fall back into being such good friends, and I loved seeing that. They instantly started comparing who's done more, who's contributed more to the cause, who's better here, and it was great. Mat, Rand said, are you really trying to get into a bragging contest with the Dragon Reborn? He paused for a moment. Besides, I cleanse Sidene. I win. And then, of course, the scene ends with Mat, let's see, let me see if I can find that now. Mat saying, sure, Mat said. By the way, I saved Moraine. Chew on that as you try to decide which one of the two of us is winning. Mat followed Tuon, and behind him rose the laughter of the Dragon Reborn. So, I'll say this before I go on a little bit of a rant about Tuon. I loved that this scene was balanced out with so much joy and humor, and I love Rand and Mat's relationship together. That said, Tuon is the worst. Okay, so Rand is basically pleading. I mean, he's on his knees, extending his hand, humbling himself, pleading, join us. And all she cares about is keeping her slaves. She couldn't care less about the cause. She doesn't care about helping. She just wants her slaves. Yeah, so he gets down and just basically pleads with her. Mat steps in and he says, listen, Tuon, you can trust him. And Tuon says, what's your offer? Rand says, peace. Rand said, standing, hand still out. Peace for 100 years. Longer, if I can make it so. I have persuaded the other rulers to sign a treaty and work together to fight the armies of the shadow. I would have my borders secured, Tuon said. Altara and Amithsia shall be yours. Taraban and Alman Plain as well, Tuon said. I hold them now. I will not be forced from them by your treaty. You wish peace? You will give me this. So Rand agrees and then says, the half you already control. She said, I would have all my women this side of the Araya Ocean who can channel as Damane. Rand very, very hesitantly agrees. I will allow you to do what you will in Shan-Chan, but I will require you to relinquish the Damane you have taken while in this land. Then we have no agreement, Tuon said. Mat held his breath. Rand hesitated, hand lowering. The fate of the world itself could hang on this Fortuna. Please. If it is that important, she said firmly, you can agree to my demand. Our property is our own. Property, she means people. You wish a treaty? Then you will get it with this clause. We keep the Damane we already have. In exchange, I will allow you to leave in freedom. So Rand, very, very sadly, agrees. Let it be done. Light be merciful, let it be done. I will carry this weight too. You may keep the Damane you already have, but you shall not take any from among my allies while we fight the last battle. Taking any afterward who are not in your land will be seen as breaking the treaty and attacking the other nations. And then she finally agreed. Oh my goodness, Tuon sucks. And I know Mat is so deeply loved in this fandom. I feel fairly neutral about him. He's so instrumental and so great, but I don't really care about him that much, honestly. He's done so much, and I don't want to take away from all of his accomplishments, but I guess I just don't jive with his personality as much as so many people do. And I will say this, Tuon sucks. And I know that I know that a lot of people like Tuon out there, and I quite liked her when she and Mat were getting together, but now I don't. And I think Mat sucks too in this scene, even though he was the peacemaker and he was like the only reason Tuon actually worked with Rand at all is because of Mat. But also, I don't know, man. If I just witnessed a whole conversation of my husband, my partner fighting to be able to keep his slaves at the expense of the world, not caring about the rest of the world as long as he can keep his slaves, it'd make me look at him a little differently, to say the least. And the fact that Mat doesn't look at her any differently kind of makes me think he sucks a little bit too. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, and I'll probably get some angry comments, but I mean, that scene was exactly what it was supposed to be. That scene took all the emotion out of me that it was supposed to have, and I love that this book had so many reactions out of me. I will quickly mention Tam before we just dive into the last battle here, because Tam's incredible. I love Tam. I love the role he played in Mat's arc overall, how he then gets to have a relationship with Rand again here, teaches Rand to fight with his other hand, works on a lot of internal stuff with him, having peace with himself, how to let go, which becomes really instrumental in a minute. I love Tam's role. He has a very subtle role in this series, and I love him. Final battle. I'm going to talk about that now, and I'm going to talk about it by character, and I'm not going to go through every single detail that happened in this final battle because it was a 200-page chapter. And I'm really just going to highlight the people and how I felt about their role. So here we go. Who should I start with? I'm going to start with Mat because I kind of just gave him a hard time, and I think that his role in this final battle was fantastic. I love how much he had to fight for people's trust to be able to have any sort of influence on this final battle, and how little certain people trusted him and didn't want to give him any sort of power. And then once he finally did get that, I loved that basically everybody, so many people were thinking, what is Mat doing? I don't understand. And then you have Demandre over there who's like, oh, this must be Rand, because nobody could have this battle strategy. Nobody could know this much but the Dragon Reborn. It was so satisfying to me to see the people on Mat's side saying, I don't trust Mat. I don't know what he's doing. I none of this is working for me. And then you've got Damandre over here going, oh no, this is really good. We trust Matt. We know how skilled he is and the ability that he has. And once again, I love that that's not just handed to him and his friends don't fully trust him because they don't know what we know. But then we see how powerful that is. And oh man, Matt's arc is so satisfying in this book. Perrin as well, he was a character I kind of struggled with because as I was reading Perrin, I was disappointed with the role he played in this book. But then looking back, I'm really, really satisfied with it. I have been waiting. I've been waiting for Perrin, for book 6 Perrin, for a million books now. Book 6 Perrin was Perrin in his prime, in my opinion. You know, when he is such a beast on the battlefield, and I've been waiting for him. You know, book 6 was him when he finally embraced who he could be, and then he's since then backtracked so much and been fighting his destiny and not wanting to be a leader and just no arc with him for so long. In this book, I expected him to be on the battlefield. I was waiting for more book 6 Perrin, and I was really disappointed that that's not what we got because that's the Perrin that I love and that I wanted. But his arc was actually really great in this because he did all his fighting in in the dream world. And his role, he, like everybody else, without him, without what he did, the battle would have been lost. And the role that he played was, it was actually really perfect for him. Like I said, I was disappointed at first because I wanted him on the battlefield, but this was so much better. Perrin, just a weave, had such a satisfying position in this final battle. It was, I don't know, I ended up really, really loving it. Egwene as well. I was really satisfied with her role in this battle, and the way she went out was, this is what I'm talking about. I have such mixed feelings about her because I was so irritated with her in that room with Rand, but then the sacrifice she made, just, I think I love her. Lan, of course, once again, his moment at the end of the final battle, the end of that chapter. Oh my gosh. Okay. I have you, Damandre finally growled, breathing heavily. Whoever you are, I have you. You cannot win. You didn't listen to me, Lan whispered. I did not come here to win, Lan whispered, smiling. I came here to kill you. Death is lighter than a feather. Ooh, Lan in this book. Actually, really just everybody. I'm so happy with how this last battle went because I went through most of this series believing that this was a chosen one story, right? I've been waiting for Rand to be the one that saves the day. And I loved that every single one of our main characters had to be where it was the most satisfying character arc I've read. And it's because I've been saying that for a while, right? I've been saying for a while that these character arcs are the most masterful and satisfying character arcs I've ever read because you see where they come from in book 1 and all the pain and the struggle and the setbacks and all that they go through to become who they need to be so that they can face off in the final battle. And it's been satisfying for a long time, but then seeing how it's not a chosen one thing and actually every single one of these characters had to have gone through all the arcs that they needed to go through in order to get to this moment, in order to play this role in the final battle, in the last battle. And if they weren't here, if they didn't get this far, if anyone was out of place and wasn't able to do their very specific role, it would have all fallen apart. I love how much we needed every single character in order for this to work. It made it made every single one of their individual arcs that much more so. I don't think I've ever read something this masterful, this well thought out, this much intention and planning from the start, that they all had to be exactly here, and every single one of their arcs needed to happen in order to get them here, and they had to be here. Every one of them had to be here in order for this to work. I can't express how satisfying that was. Like, two characters that I was not happy with their arc. No, I was not happy with their role in the battle, were Nynaeve and Moraine. Because they are, I mean, I know Nynaeve at this point is so, Moraine. I know Moraine at this point is so weak in the power. But Nynaeve isn't. She's like the most powerful Aes Sedai out there. And the fact that each of them just existed during the entire battle, waiting with Rand while he did his internal struggle, which I'll talk about in a minute, really bummed me out, really disappointed me. But after I finished the book, I was talking with my friend, and he pointed out to me that while it's true, like, he understands, like, my mentality was, we brought Moraine back from the dead for this. But he's like, while I get what you're saying, think about it. Moraine was so weak, sure, she would have been fighting, but could she have done that much? And Nynaeve, yeah, she's the most powerful Aes Sedai, or one of the most powerful Aes Sedai right now, but where would she have been the most effective right now? Healing, on the battleground, healing, not even fighting. Even though I understand that were they not both there, everything would have failed, but I expected a different kind of power from them. But he's right that this was exactly where they needed to be, not just because it couldn't have been anyone else there to pull Rand out, but because if we put them someplace else, it still wouldn't have been this big epic battle like I had imagined for each of them. And I know that the role that they played in the final battle was, again, just like everybody else, were they not there? They had to be the ones that were there, and were they not there, it wouldn't have worked. I just thought that they would be beast moding, kind of like what I expected from Perrin, but it's okay. I feel better about it now than I did while I was reading it. I want to talk about Rand because I was also really, really happy with his role in this final battle. He faced off against Moradin. He faced off against Moradin. And then fell into the hole in the pattern, and that was when he had to face off against the Dark One. So I think I didn't go in expecting anything as far as what his battle with the Dark One would look like, and I did not expect this. It would have been disappointing if the Dark One had taken on a physical form and he and Rand had an epic duel, because one, there's enough battle in this book already, so it would have just been another fight. But two, I think if that's what had happened, I would have not been impressed, because there's no way Rand could fight. There's no way Rand could win a physical duel. Like, I just wouldn't have believed it if he overcame the Dark One physically. That wouldn't have been a satisfying face-off. And at the time that I was reading it, that this is a mental face-off, that this is an emotional face-off, that this is an internal struggle between the two. At first, while I was reading it, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. I think I like it, but I can't really tell because this is just so different from what I ever would have anticipated. But I'm very happy with it because Rand has had an internal battle from book one, and Rand's descent and his darkest moments have all been internal. And a lot of Rand's character growth has been a lot of Rand's growth as a person has been internal. It's been him learning to let go and accept and relinquish control. And that all led up to this final battle. And the battle that he's had with the Dark One this entire time, the battle that he's had throughout this entire series, has really been primarily internal and a mental struggle. And the fact that it all came to a head with him and the Dark One in this way was actually so satisfying. And him being able to overcome the Dark One by finally overcoming the mental turmoil and finally letting go was, I don't know what I was expecting, but I don't think it could have gone better than this. And I'm really happy with that final battle between the two. So then Nynaeve and Moraine link up to Rand and pull him out of this hole in the pattern, and you know, the massive role that they play that was so different from what I wanted from them, but I have accepted it. Okay, now I'm going to talk. I'm kind of all over the place and I apologize. There's just too much for me to be able to cohesively cover this last battle. So now I'm just going to jump to the thing that really bummed me out and the thing that I'm still pretty dissatisfied with as far as the way this thing ended, and that's all the fake out deaths and resurrections. I hate the resurrection trope. It has to be done really, really well for me to like it, and I thought Moraine's resurrection was really satisfying. And I could have accepted 1 or 2 resurrections or fake out deaths. I'm fine with that sparingly. But there were so many packed into this tiny little section at the end of the book that I hated it, and I still hate it. So let me take you through my pain. First we have Elaine. She's gonna die, and her babies are gonna be cut out of her. Horrifying. I expected Elaine to die. She's made so many bad decisions thinking that she's bulletproof. I expected it to be her demise. So when I found out that she was gonna die, okay, holy cow, this is a way to go out that I was not expecting. 1 page later, oh wait, no, she's not actually dead. Okay, Brigitte is also, she's dead, but she's not fully dead. She came back, and I know that we were expecting that it all worked, but the two compounded together. I was like, okay, don't like this. Oh well, moving forward. Egwene dies. This was great. And she stayed dead. Excellent. Lan dies. Fake out. No, he's not. Matt dies. Ouch. Lan and Matt both hurt me bad with their deaths, even though those were also 2 that I was like, if people are gonna die, it'll be these 2. Nope. Both of them are fine. We find out like 2-3 pages later. Fael is dead. Perrin's mourning, like Lan and Matt's deaths hurt me. I'm annotating my book. I'm like, it's pain, it hurts. 1 second later, they're fine. That's frustrating for me. This feels like hollow emotions when this happens to me, where it's like, they're dead 2 seconds later. Just kidding. Like, that makes me feel like I've experienced hollow emotions. It feels like the pain that I just had was stolen from me because it wasn't real. And that's a frustrating experience for me. Like, I know that a lot of people aren't bothered by this, but people have their preferences. This is my preference. I hate that stuff. So then Fael's dead. Perrin mourning over Fael is the thing that hurt me the most. That's the thing that I was just like, oh my gosh, it hurts so bad. No, she's brought back to life. She's fine. So then when Rand is dead, when I'm told that Rand is dead, I don't believe you at this point. I've experienced so many hollow emotions, so many fake out deaths, so many, like, I want you to feel the pain of death, but I can't commit, so I'm not actually gonna make them dead. I've experienced that so many times up to this point that when we get to Rand's death, I've removed myself emotionally from this story. And so when I'm told that Rand dies, I feel nothing. I don't believe you at this point. And so then when he comes back, even though now looking back, and I've reread the end now that I'm less emotionally charged about it, and I do love Rand's resurrection, the way his soul was transferred to this other body and he was able to walk away and live on his life. I actually love that. I think that that was great. But at the time, I was frustrated because it was like fake out after fake out after fake out after fake out. And so when it came to Rand, I had completely removed myself emotionally from the ending of this book because I was so frustrated at how packed this same thing kept happening over and over and over again. And I kept feeling like like Jordan and Sanderson were trying to make me feel pain, but they couldn't commit to it. And so it just felt so hollow, and I was so irritated by it. So when I closed the book at the end of that night, my overall feeling about this book Even though I loved so much about it, the feeling that I ended it with was frustration because of all the hollow emotions I kept feeling. I didn't even expect that many characters to die, you know what I mean? Like, going into book 14, I was like, okay, it's classic fantasy. Most of our main characters will make it out fine. That's the way of classic fantasy. This isn't grimdark. I'm not but... And the thing is, if Egwene was the only one that died in this book, I would have come out fine. I would have come out satisfied. But it was just the fact that, like, I kept being told people are dead or made to believe people are dead, only to a couple page later, just kidding. And it happened over and over and over again in such a short period of time that it made me so angry. I know this is something that will not bother a lot of people, and that's fine. It really, really frustrated me. Now that I've had a couple days away from it and I've gone back and I've reread the ending, I still hate it. I still hate all the fake out deaths. I still think it's hollow emotions. I cannot stand it when authors do this, and it did taint the ending, the very last section of this book, a little bit for me, which is really frustrating because I loved this book so much. But now I will say that I love the way Rand's soul was transported, that he got to live on. I did not love that Rand walked away from it thinking, which lady shall I choose? I have 3 women that love me, 3 women that I love. Who will I let follow me into the next bit? Who do I pick? And I'm just like, Rand, we're past this. You've been told multiple times in great detail that you get all of them or you get none of them. Why are we still here? Why are you still trying to decide which lady you're gonna pick? I thought that was weird that his final thoughts were there when we've had this discussion multiple times. But I loved that the book ended on him pulling that pipe from his bag, not being able to light it, trying to pull from the one sort. I'll just read it. There it is. He tried to pull for the one power and it didn't work. No sardine. Can't have it. Then he thought of the pipe being lit, and it was. What do you mean? What does that mean? Does Rand have power? He doesn't. He can't channel anymore, but he can light, and he's not in the dream world, but he can light his pipe by thinking about it. What do you mean? I think that despite my 10-minute rant about all the fake out deaths, I think that this book ended exactly where I wanted it to. To me, I don't tend to like 10 years later or 50 years later sort of endings. I think that the perfect place to end a book is after the final battle is done, after the final thing is completed, and then the characters, we have enough from them that we can see where they're going without having seen them go there. And I think that this book ended in the perfect place for all of our characters because I can clearly see where in what direction each of them would probably go in, but I don't know if they go there. I don't know what it looks like. I love the feeling that a story is continuing on after I've run out of pages, and I can easily believe that every single one of these characters continued living on their life, even though I don't get to see how it looks. I love that there's enough mystery with where Rand leaves off that I can speculate for years what that means, what kind of power he has, how that works. Maybe you guys already know. I sure don't. And I love that. I feel like I was left off exactly where I needed to be left off with each of these characters, to just speculate forever where they go, but have a good idea. And that's such a satisfying place to end a series. Thank you for letting me rant a little bit about my hatred of fake out deaths and resurrection tropes, especially if they're done really fast. Like Moraine's was over books, and it was so satisfying to have her come back after her fake out death. But all the other ones were not. And I get that everybody won't be bothered by that, but I'm never going to change my opinion on this. I hate that happened, but overall, I'm so happy with how this last book played out, and I think that it was such a satisfying place for the series to end.
Blood and bloody ashes, woman, what are you doing?
I'm trying to create a website. The Aes Sedai need me to create a website for them, but I don't know code, and every website designer that I try to talk to is as wool-headed as you are.
Have you not tried Squarespace? They had these pre-made templates that you can use to create your own website.
Okay, all right. I've already looked it up. They're the ones that have sharing tools so that people can share my website from their Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, all the things that haven't been invented yet.
Yes, Squarespace's powerful blogging tool helps me to share photos, stories, videos, and updates. You can schedule, categorize, and share your posts to make your content work for you.
All right, be quiet, Woolbrain. In the time it took you to say all that, I created my own website. So there you go. There's my last review. I do still have New Spring to read, but honestly, I don't think I'm going to read it right away because I want to wait until it's been a month or 2 or 3, and I'm missing this world and I'm craving to return to it, and then I'll have this little novella to just bring me back a little bit. I love that I get to finish my very last thing on a Jordan book. So I'm not going to read it right away. I'm not going to rush it. I'm just going to pop back in whenever I miss the world, which may be soon, it may be in a little while, but this has been such a satisfying series to read, and I am grateful for all of you who have stuck with me while I've been reading through it, and thank you for being patient with me while I reviewed this while sick. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. This review is going up on an off day. I'll see you guys again soon.